Almost there. Chapter 47, Tiana. I'm sorry, Tiana said, unsure whom she was talking to now, tears blurring her vision. She pushed her chair away from the table and stood abruptly. Then she ran out of the apartment and didn't look back. She spent the entire cab ride home trying to discount Rosalind's warnings. It was all too much for her to wrap her head around. How could a decision she had made a year before affect the entire universe? This fog, Buford and Miss Marjorie, and the others losing their memories, all of that was because of her? All because she wanted to have her daddy back? She closed her eyes tight against the tears and began to stream down her face. How was she supposed to willingly let go of her father when she had just gotten him back? She wasn't ready to say goodbye to him. But when would she ever be ready? A nagging voice asked. He could live to be 1,000 years old, and she'd still not want to give him up. If she never willingly let him go, would he live forever? It seemed impossible, but so did having her daddy back in the first place. An onslaught of anguish assailed her, so intense it robbed her of breath. The deal she made with Facilier had given her something most people only dreamed about, more time with a lost loved one. She had been granted an entire year that she should never had with her daddy. Those long talks while sitting in the rocking chairs on the porch, picking vegetables in his garden, cooking together at the supper club. They were the most precious gifts, ones she would cherish for the rest of her days. But now her daddy seemed to be suffering. She had asked Rosalind for the way to fix this mess she'd put on the city and all her loved ones through. And she'd gotten her answer, and deep down she knew she couldn't brush it aside just because it wasn't the one she wanted. Tiana braced herself for the wave of cold, hard truth. She would have to say goodbye to her father at some point. That day just had come all too quickly. Tiana knew that things had taken a turn for the worse the moment the cab pulled into her parents' house. Even through the dense fog, she could make out the herd of people from the neighborhood crowding the front porch. They stared at her with pity as she walked up the pathway to the porch steps, mournful expressions on their faces. As she approached the front door, Mr. Miller from across the street put a hand on her shoulder. "It doesn't look good, Tiana. The doctor was just here. He says he's never seen anything like it." He gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "I'm sorry." Tiana nodded, her throat aching as she entered the house. Her daddy lay in the same place she'd left him, his head cradled in her mother's lap. Several of her mother's friends had arrived. A couple of them sat in her living room, while others were in the kitchen collecting meals that had been prepared by their neighbors. It was a ritual around these parts. Those in mourning did not have to worry about cooking or cleaning for at least a week after a death in the family. The entire community pulled together to offer support. Tiana closed her eyes, remembering the last thing she and her mother had gone through this. It seemed as if it had happened just yesterday. But when she'd agreed to Facilier's deal, he had not considered how difficult it would be to face this loss twice. She looked over at Lizette, who stood near the sewing machine, away from those who crowded around the living room. Her solemn expression was filled with understanding. Tiana nodded and mouthed the silent "thank you." "Every beginning has an end," she murmured to herself, voice shaking. Tiana sucked in a deep breath before walking over to the sofa. Several of the women made room for her, clearing the space next to her parents. She looked down at her father and could barely believe her eyes. His face was ashen, almost ghost-like. His body looked like an 80-year-old man's. Tufts of gray hair grew from his ears. His age-spotted skin stretched over knobby, gnarled hands, which were folded atop his chest. Someone brought over a chair and directed Tiana to take a seat. She did. And then she took her daddy's limp hand in her own and brought it up to her cheek. Tiana closed her eyes and rubbed her cheek against his paper-thin skin. Her throat constricted as she tried to swallow past the knot of grief clogging it. With her free hand she reached out and captured her mother's, lacing their fingers together. Her daddy's eyes fluttered open. A tired smile drew across his lips. "Hey, baby girl," he said. His voice was so weak it was barely perceptible. "Hey, Daddy." She gave his hand a gentle squeeze and tried to find the strength to say the words she needed to say. "You're tired, aren't you?" Tiana asked. He nodded. His chest rose with a breath as he struggled to take. I know, she whispered, as tears began to stream down her cheeks. Her daddy tried to reach for her face, but he was too frail to lift his hand more than a few inches. The crushing realization brought even more tears to her eyes. She straightened her shoulders, finding the resolve to press forward. She would not make it harder for her daddy to let go. She soothingly rubbed her thumb back and forth across his wrinkled, fragile hand, offering comfort. Then Tiana closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, mentally preparing herself for what she must do next. She managed to smile as she looked down at him and said, Do you know how special it's been to be in that kitchen with you every day? It's been a dream come true, and I would not trade it for anything. Her lip trembled as her emotions threatened to overwhelm her. But I don't think we'll be cooking together any longer, Daddy. The time for that has passed. It's okay, baby girl, he said. It's going to be okay. I'll miss it, she said. I'll miss you. You'll see me again. Yes, she said with an emphatic nod. We'll see each other again one day. She swallowed past the anguish jammed up in her throat. But for now, it's time for us to say goodbye. Tiana leaned forward and pressed her cheek against his. She took a deep breath. Now this time, she had to make things right. Tout la prive jeune amen, she said softly, trying to channel all the beauty and care Rosalind had in the words. Tout la prive jeune amen. She repeated the phrase quietly over and over and over, as tears streamed down her face and onto her father's wrinkled skin. It's okay to let go, she whispered in his ear. We're going to be okay. I'll take care of Mama, and she'll take care of me. She kissed his wrinkled forehead. I love you, Daddy. They remained that way for untold minutes, with Tiana holding onto her daddy with one hand and to her mother with the other. She and her mother drew strength from each other as her daddy's breaths became shallower and shallower. Silent tears streamed down Tiana's face as she listened to her mother's quiet sobs. How she wished she could alleviate her pain. But Tiana had come to learn that enduring this particular kind of pain was an unfortunate but inescapable part of life. She had gone to extraordinary measures to avoid the agony of losing her father, only to end up in this exact place again. Her days of avoiding life's inevitable consequences were over. She saw her daddy's chest heave one last time, and then he went still. Tiana was surprised by the unexpected sense of calm that washed over her amid her grief. Murmurs drifted from near the front door. What is this? Someone asked. Have you ever seen anything like it? As people began to congregate around the door, Tiana made her way to the closest window. She gasped at the sight on the other side of the glass. The fog had thinned, but only in the area surrounding their house, and flower petals rained from the sky. They collected on the ground like a colorful snowfall. Tiana closed her eyes, a gentle smile touching her lips. She was at peace because her daddy was now at peace. But she still had one last thing to do.